Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Health officials in Gaza say at least 14 Palestinians have starved to death over the past day, bringing the total to at least 147, including 88 children. Facing growing international pressure, Israel's allowed some additional aid into Gaza, including by airdrops, but the UN says it's still just a drop in the ocean of what's needed. Israel also said it'll pause attacks for periods of the day in parts of Gaza, but the death toll keeps climbing. Earlier today, Israeli forces opened fire at 2 food sites. On Sunday, Israeli forces killed 9 Palestinians and injured 54 who gathered along an aid convoy route in central Gaza. Earlier today, 2 leading Israeli human rights groups, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights, issued reports accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. Yuli Novak, the director of B'Tselem, said, quote, "What we see is a clear, intentional attack on civilians in order to destroy a group. I think every human being has to ask himself, what do you do in the face of genocide?" Unquote. On Sunday, Hamas chief Khalil al-Hayya accused Israel of sabotaging ceasefire negotiations.
لا معنى لاستمرار المفاوضات.
There is no point on continuing negotiations under blockade, extermination, and starvation of our children, women, and people in the Gaza Strip. The immediate, dignified entry of food and medications to our people is the real and serious expression of the viability of continuing negotiations.
This comes as officials in Gaza say more than 40,000 infants under 1 year old are at risk of a slow death due to a catastrophic shortage of baby formula. On Friday, scores of Palestinians scrambled for food at a makeshift soup kitchen in Gaza City.
I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. When she saw the empty pot, she started to slap her face. There's no food, no water. I gave her a sip of water to make her stop. Then our neighbor gave her half a loaf of bread. He told her, "Take this, eat. We are living with no food or drink, no food, no bread, not even water. We're craving even the water."
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denies there's starvation in Gaza.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza.
For the second time in less than 2 months, Israeli forces have raided a civilian aid ship bound for Gaza in international waters. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition was attempting to break the Israeli siege by sailing the Handala ship to Gaza with baby formula, diapers, food, and medicine on board. On Saturday night, Israeli forces seized the aid and detained the ship's crew of 21 civilians, including parliamentarians, human rights lawyers, and journalists. Just before the raid, one of the flotilla organizers, Huwaida Araf, spoke by phone with the Israeli forces from the ship.
This vessel carries food and baby formula for children that your government is deliberately starving. Your blockade is deliberately starving children to death. You have no authority to enforce an illegal blockade. This is a war crime.
We'll speak with the Palestinian-American human rights lawyer Huwaida Araf later in the broadcast. The Pentagon says it killed a senior Islamic State leader and 2 other members of ISIS in Aleppo, Syria, in a raid Friday. The Pentagon says the men posed a threat to U.S. forces and the new Syrian government. This comes weeks after the U.S. lifted most economic sanctions on Syria. On Sunday, the head of Syria's Electoral Commission announced the country is set to hold its first parliamentary election under the new government in September. The United States and European Union have announced a deal to avert a transatlantic trade war. Under the deal, the U.S. would impose a 15% tariff on most European imports, a large increase over the current rate, but far smaller than what Trump had threatened. The EU also agreed to purchase more than $750 billion of energy products from the U.S. and invest an additional $600 billion in the U.S. Trump's announced deal in Scotland, where he met with the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
We have a deal. We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. It's 15% tariffs across the board, all inclusive.
President Trump is meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer today in Scotland. On Saturday, anti-Trump protests were held in the Scottish cities of Edinburgh and Aberdeen, while Trump played golf at his luxury resort, Trump Turnberry. In Edinburgh, protesters called on European leaders to stand up against Trump.
We want them to stand up for the people in Palestine. We want them to stand up for the people in Ukraine. We want them to stand up against Trump's bullying of tariffs all around the world.
A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit by the Trump administration against the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois over its sanctuary policies that limit cooperation with federal immigration agencies. U.S. District Judge Lindsey Jenkins said the sanctuary policies are protected by the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker praised the ruling, saying it'll ensure state law enforcement is, quote, not carrying out the Trump administration's unlawful policies or troubling tactics, unquote. In an attempt to quell the MAGA base uproar over the Trump administration's refusal to release the files of the dead serial sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, President Trump's former private lawyer, held a second day of meetings on Friday with Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein. Blanche met with Maxwell for 9 hours at the federal courthouse in Tallahassee, Florida. On Friday, Trump was questioned if he's considered pardoning Maxwell.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she's cooperating?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
We'll speak with investigative journalist Vicky Ward about Ghislaine Maxwell and the serial sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein later in the broadcast. In international news, Malaysia's president says Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a, quote, immediate and unconditional ceasefire set to begin at midnight. 33 people have been killed, thousands displaced since fighting erupted last week. The conflict between the two countries dates back to over a century ago, during France's occupation of the region. Doctors Without Borders says 652 children have died of malnutrition in the Nigerian state of Katsina during the first half of this year. The charity said the deaths were due to funding cuts from international donors, particularly from the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. In eastern Congo, Islamic State-backed rebels killed 38 people and injured 15 at a Catholic church on Sunday. Officials told Reuters the rebels wielded guns and machetes and attacked worshippers who were taking part in night mass. Several others are still missing. Ukraine and Russia continued to trade drone attacks. On Saturday, Ukraine said 200 Russian drones and 30 missiles targeted Dnipro, killing 3 people. In Russia, 2 people died in a Ukrainian drone strike. Meanwhile, Reuters has revealed new details about the role Elon Musk has personally played in the war in Ukraine. In 2022, when Ukraine pushed to regain some of its territory back from Russia, Reuters reports Musk ordered the shutdown of Ukraine's access to his Starlink satellite service. The Ukrainian offensive stalled as its drones monitoring Russian forces went dark. A source told Reuters the decision allowed Musk to take, quote, the outcome of a war into his own hands, unquote. The New York Times reveals the Trump administration's trying to keep secret how much it'll cost to renovate the $400 million jumbo luxury jet recently gifted to the Trump administration from the royal family of Qatar. The Times noted $934 million has been mysteriously transferred from a project to modernize the U.S. nuclear arsenal. While federal funds will pay for the renovations, the plane will be transferred to Trump and his presidential library after he leaves office. The congressional-funded U.S. Institute of Peace has a new head, State Department official Darren Beattie. During Trump's first term, Beattie served as a White House speechwriter, but was fired for speaking at a gathering of prominent white nationalists. Last year, he posted a message on X, writing, quote, "Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work," unquote. After coming under bipartisan pressure, the Trump administration's agreed to release more than $5 billion in frozen education funding for public schools. The money had been previously approved by Congress for English language programs, student enrichment, and adult literacy and other programs. Here in New York on Saturday, disability activists took over the lobby of Trump Tower to protest against the Trump administration's cuts to Medicaid. The New York Daily News reports 11 people were arrested at Trump Tower. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people protested in 225 towns and cities as part of the family's first National Day of Action. It comes weeks after President Trump signed a bill that could result in 17 million Americans losing their health insurance. The protests were timed to coincide with the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act and the 60th anniversary of Medicaid, which is this Wednesday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.